Hi class, this is Sam Hine and I'm going to continue our presentation on the achievement gap. The question I took a deep dive into is, are there new ideas or strategies on how to tackle the achievement gap? And my research showed me, yes, there is. So let's take a look. The first study, and I tried to keep all of these within the past few years, is that there's a significant achievement gap in online literacy between high and low income populations. Essentially, this said that the higher income students, they have more access to the internet at home. They're required to use the internet more at school, so they're doing better here. Not only does digital literacy help you currently in school, but it sets you up for the next steps of life. And this is blaming the achievement gap. This study actually blames it on the Common Core state standards. Nowhere do they use the words online or internet in there. So although they talk about using different technologies and different forms of media, schools aren't required to teach online literacy. So if you are a school that doesn't have any money, you can save some by not investing in this sort of technology, and kids are falling behind. So the study is actually suggesting that we need to revisit the standards and we need to change them to explicitly demand that schools educate their students in online literacy to help close the digital achievement gap. Another study notes it's talking about the way that we actually teach our teachers. This can exacerbate the achievement gap if we aren't working on our teacher education. So there's UW-Madison, which it features credit-based graduate courses, facilitated faculty discussion groups. It goes on and on and on. It's a whole immersive program where you take many classes specifically looking at how you tackle the achievement gap. So the things in the class I don't think are necessarily revolutionary. It talks about making your content culturally relevant. It talks about practicing inclusive teaching strategies. I'm familiar with those things, but I've just sort of touched on them. And this is where you actually take a series of classes devoted to them. So what this accomplishes is that it improves teachers' self-efficacy, and it also encourages your campus. You acknowledge the achievement gap and you talk about it. So again, it wasn't necessarily for the ideas of this, but it's the practice and the attention that they give to it, which seemed to be like a new strategy to me. So they're trying to get this adopted at institutions across the country. Another thing they looked at is family background. This was a study done in 2016 where it is saying you can have the best school in the world, the best teacher in the world, but if you don't look at the other factors in a student's life, you're not going to be able to close this gap. You need to look at families and neighborhoods and not just schools, and you try to improve them. So it offered up three different possible solutions. Number one is called Promise Neighborhoods, which I had never heard of, but this is actually a grant that is offered by the US Department of Education. These things, you take a distressed community and they call these things wraparound programs. It's a holistic approach. They try to tackle everything. So they look at parents before you even have a child. They try to set you up for success. They offer charter schools. They have college success offices. They have free legal services, tax prep, financial counseling. It goes on and on and on. Basically, it takes all this federal money that we have, instead of just looking at a school, they say, how do we improve a community, a society, a neighborhood, so that not just when the kid is in school, but in all the other aspects of their life, they are set up for success. Like, what if you actually have food services that give them breakfast, lunch, and a snack every day? How much can we help kids that way? So there's a video on this. I encourage you to watch it. I couldn't get the audio to work on this video presentation, but it is the someone who piloted this program in Harlem, and it's also former President Obama speaking on them. It was highly successful. They also looked at early childhood education. There's studies that say 90% of your brain develops by age 5, yet we don't spend enough money on preschools. There is a study where it showed if you take these randomly selected kids and you put them in preschool intervention, within a year they're outperforming their peers by 10 IQ points. So let's spend money. We have the money. Why is it all going when you're older if your brain is developing when you're younger? And then finally, they looked at schools of choice, which ironically I just argued against in my last project. But this says if you let students go to school, or if you make them go to school just based on their residence, then the affluent families are going to go to the good schools, and the underprivileged school families are going to be stuck at the bad schools. There's some studies that suggest this has raised graduation rates. I happen to disagree with this, but it was in the research that I found, so I thought I would include it. So that is an overview of new ideas and strategies on how to tackle the achievement gap. And I wanted to leave you with a request. Me, Liz, and Alfred, we would love to hear from you guys. Please give us your thoughts on the achievement gap in the comment sections. Leave your name and a reflection or a question. It could be something you learned, something you want to try in your class. Maybe you have a question. Maybe you think we're totally wrong and you want to berate us. We would love to hear from you. We will check these and we will respond to you guys. We personally believe that the achievement gap is something we should all have in our minds. So we would love to continue the discussion. So please sound off there. And thank you so much for listening to our presentation.